Hey, this is Tyler with TJX Survival. I have come to Canada with Karamat Wilderness Ways. Hey, this is Tyler with TJX Survival. I'm here at Karamat Wilderness Ways with Kelly Harlton, and we have been at a course all week long. He's going to tell you a little bit about that. So stay.
Hi, I'm Kelly Harlton. Glad to be here today with Tyler, who we're going to have a little discussion today on the fun we're having out at Karamat Wilderness Ways in Alberta here.
So, Kelly, who are you? So who is Kelly for my viewers so everybody knows who he is?
Well, I guess you'd say I'm a bit of a Morris disciple. I met him when I was in grade 6.
He's talking about Morris Kohansky.
Right. Yeah, the one and only. The late, great Morris Kohansky. Yeah. I first met Morris when I was in grade 6, and he motivated me as a young kid. It was in 1974. I was 11 years old.
That's a long time ago.
And it's changed my life, actually. It's set me on a path of discovery in terms of the outdoors and wilderness survival and outdoor living skills and all manner of fun stuff.
Cool. So how did you end up going from meeting him, you said at the age of 11, to here? Tell me about the path from Kelly Kid to Sipper Kelly.
A horrible nickname I had when I was a kid was Camper Kelly. While everybody was doing normal things as a kid, I was taking every opportunity to be out in the bush. After I met Morrison, he lifted what I called the veil of green. So he turned the sea of trees and grass that was just a blob to me into a very intricate, interesting place. I like to tell the story of Morris when he took me for a walk when I was at grade 6 camp. And he took us for a 2-hour walk. And in that 2 hours, I feel like he showed us 100 things. I mean, he lashed together a couple of sticks and made a Roycraft pack frame.
This one over there?
Yeah. Fine. This is an example of the way he started the walk. Is he grabbed 3 sticks and literally lashed them together, and then in turn lashed a load onto the sticks and put it on his back. So it's just a sturdy triangle of 3 sticks. It's extraordinarily versatile. One of the projects we do at our course here at Karamat. So on this walk, he introduced us to some edible plants. He'd say, taste this, smell this. He reached down into the moss and pulled out a chunk of spruce root and quickly made a rabbit snare, and on it went. And for me, it was I was flabbergasted as a youth. And the next couple of years, I sort of, I like to say, I sort of went off the deep end and started buying every survival manual I get my hands on and wilderness books, and started accumulating outdoor gear. And fast forward a year later, I did my first solo camp when I was in grade 7. So sort of a silly age, I think, to let your kids go on a solo, but that's another discussion. And then I sort of actually lost touch with Morris for a while, and I took some other survival courses and just did a self-study thing. And then when I was about 20, I guess it'd be about 21, I found his Bushcraft book, Northern Bushcraft, as it was called back then. And I'll be go to heck, I loved the book because everything it talked about worked. And the plants it had in it and the trees that were in it were actually plants and trees that were around. And
knowledge from experience and local flora.
Yeah. Everything else, had been from the States and from BC and from environments that weren't similar to ours. I'm flipping through the photo supplement one day and I see the old gray bearded guy. And Morris, in those days, often had a beard. And it struck me that, I wonder if that's that old guy that took me for a hike in grade 6. And so I called him up and he says, yeah, that would be me. This was in about 1990, I'm going to say in the 80s. So it'd be about 1986. So I said, would you mind to visit? And he said, no problem. I came down and spent about, well, everybody that visited Moore's realized that you better have about 6 hours with nothing to do because
For the first topic.
yeah, wow. So he signed my book and loaded me with all kinds of information and material, and of course immediately thereafter I took his courses, and I actually started my own outdoor company and started doing some wildernessy stuff, some survival in that. But not before I took a couple of courses from Moore's, of course. I'd already taken survival courses. I already had what I thought was a lot of experience. It's a funny time of life for somebody getting into bushcraft and survival to realize how little you actually know.
Yeah, that was my thing. I grew up ranching and hunting and doing all sorts of stuff. And thought, I'm an outdoorsman until I dipped into this and realized, no, I don't. No, I'm a wee child.
Yeah, I still am. And to end a long story though, yeah, I took his courses and subsequently became an assistant and subsequently became an instructor. And then back and forth with Moore's a bit, and then in 2009 I became the lead instructor for Karamat and have been out here ever since.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so you went from a kid to student to the new Moors.
Well,
I don't know if I want to go there, but
yeah, I don't know if I do.
To the new Moors.
They'll never be.
That's
another
fair.
Moors. Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to a course like this, what can they expect?
Well, we don't like to brag, but we always like to feel like if you come up here,
please brag. So if someone's interested in a Karamat course, like, what are you going to see? What are you going to do? What are you going to learn?
Well, you better be prepared to get your hands dirty and spend a lot of time around fire.
Like this?
Like that. Yeah. We like to see blisters on people's hands by about day 3 or 4, so that we really feel like they're
working.
They're getting their share of knife work in.
Dirty knives.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You'll test your gear and you'll test your clothing. Yeah. We have several projects that we like to do. Well, a long list of projects, but 3 primary projects we do on the courses. The winter we do a Roycraft back frame. We do a buck saw frame. Here's an example of a buck saw frame. Guy getting to know pretty good. I think it's kind of cool. Made this frame, by the way. Oh, he's touching the frame.
Oh,
now. A very nice work there, Tyler.
It's familiar looking buck saw frame. It's like I built this.
Yeah. It was kind of a fun project.
It was outstanding.
Yeah, I know you've built them before, but
yeah,
you
I
can
have.
submit idiosyncrasies.
Here's the thing: like, no matter where you go, there's 1,000 different ways to do it. But the more that you go to other people's classes and learn their version of a buck saw, their version of a bow drill, their version of whatever, the more you can refine your techniques with what's faster, what's more efficient, what works better, and what's local appropriate. Like I don't have pine like this where I'm at. I've got willow that I'm going to try this. But that's the point. If I'm here again in the future, I know how to do it in this environment. That's one of the major things. You can learn in one environment, take it to the next environment, and you think you know. So you go and you learn more and realize you don't, and then you go and you learn more and you realize you don't. It's all about refining that knowledge base.
Yeah, and then lots of things cross over too, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the saw that you used to make, you'll go, oh, hey, if I do this little tweak.
This center joint is something that I would use in another tool, but it crosses over in learning how to arch that and make it match, learning how to put it in the knots and all sorts of stuff. So.
Yeah. This is just to talk a little bit about this saw for fun. Morris used to give me a hard time for this saw because the issue with the original saw, we used to have 2 cross members that went across, and one of the refinements that I sort of figured out, I guess I'm getting the claim to fame for it anyway, which is go with a single piece of cross, which is nothing new, but the fact that we have a very fine pivot point, or fulcrum, if you want to call it that, makes it hard to make stable. It wants to go trapezoid. So I came up with a system of, instead of just 1 tension or 2 tensioners, that creates it and makes a structure, because we have triangles. So if you see it sort of looks like the letter H, more or less. If we straighten these out, it looks more like another little H.
Yeah, my paddles are a little too big.
There's an H. And so people teasingly, well, not teasingly, but now they refer to this as the Harlton H buck saw because of my refinement. But that's the whole nature of the bushcraft movement. Just this constant evolution and people playing and doing things and finding little tweaks and ways to improve things. Yeah.
Well, you can come here and learn one version, come here years later and learn an improved version.
Right,
come here years later and figure out what we're doing now, which is awesome.
So some other projects that we do are in the wintertime we do a Roycraft ski shoe. I think we have some in the background here. Yeah, those will be available on the right angle. Yeah,
show a couple of these. These aren't quite completed.
Look at these beauties.
Those don't have the straps yet, but
yeah. So they're one of these things that they're not truly a snowshoe and they're not truly a ski. So we call them
like a snow ski.
Yeah, or ski shoe as we call it. Ski shoe. Yeah. So this is the Roycraft ski shoe that Morris got taught by his guru, which was Tom Roycraft. When you get the knack of traveling on these things, they're actually in a lot of ways faster and more efficient than commercial snowshoes.
They're almost like snow pontoons.
Yeah.
They kind of just slide, and they're wide enough to keep you on top, but they're long enough that you can just go build them. Try it.
Well, and if you look it up on YouTube, good buddy fellow instructor Dale Kislick on his channel has with Nature Life, he's got some fabulous videos of how efficient these things are and how much flotation they have. And we did some contests in a video that specifically compared them, and nothing commercially available or even traditional style snowshoes had the flotation that these crazy things have.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. So worthwhile. Take a little bit of a knack to learn them how to strap them on your feet and keep them on, and it takes a little bit of a knack to finally understand how to ski on them.
Adjust them and get them set up right.
Yeah. That's right. Came up with that fourth skill notion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just the idea that, after all that work and you've built something, you still have one more layer of skill that you have to apply in order to make
play with it and tweak it, fine tune it, and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's tons of other little projects that we do. Of course, we hope we do things out of we might make cattail dolls. We might make articles out of birch bark. We might do things
knots,
bark carving, and then a heavy on fire making and fire lays and
shelters.
Huge component on shelters. We love this winter. This is a great course this year because we got lots of snow, so we were able to do several different types of snow shelters.
So some of the shelters that we've done this weekend. Tell me about what we've built this week.
Yeah. Well, we built a lot.
I was there,
but this is a great bunch. This is a great bunch. So what have we done? We started off with snow shelters while the temperatures were cool, and we built, I think, 5. We built a Quincy, which is a pretty standard Canadian thing, but a very large one.
Snow pile with sticks and giant igloo.
Yeah, exactly. Dug in. I think we got some footage of that.
Yeah.
And then a couple of and then one style of a snow trench. And
like a snow block trench.
Basically. And then I guess there's only 4. Yeah, it's only 4, isn't there? And then we did a temporary shelter with just some hoops of flexible material that you can throw a tarp over and add some snow.
And the igloo.
And then, of course, the biggest, most fun project I'd say was the Kohansky igloo, we call it. And essentially, this part of the world has just not the right snow for the quality of blocks required to build a bona fide good igloo.
It's close.
It's close.
It's cold, but then it's warm, and then it doesn't work.
And we don't get the drifts and things. So instead, what we do is we pack down an area, let it set up overnight, and then we stick in flexible wands and bend some arches, and then stack blocks on top of that. So it's kind of
like a wiki with an igloo on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's some interesting things about it. One is that you can have very, very irregular snow blocks. Mm-hmm. So if you got crappy snow, but you're getting any kind of block at all, you can actually build the shelter. And the other thing about it is, once it's completely built and sets up, if you want to, and we've done it, you can actually cut the frame out of it. And once it sets up, it is an actual igloo.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you don't get the branches and.
I just leave it there because the frame looks cool.
I know the frame does look cool. Does look cool. Yeah, and so that's the snow shelter side of life, and then on the I have to teach lots of strategies for the boreal on conditions without snow, because as wonderful a resource as it is, we can't bank on it. Lots of winters we don't get a lot of snow.
Yeah, sometimes you're just in freezing cold. The snow blows away. You still have to be able to have a solution for survival.
Right, and that's actually the tougher of the two. Cold lacking snow, we call it, or Morris called it rather, is the tougher of the two. So a little bit about wilderness beds.
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, there's really no reason. Some of the best sleeps I've had in my life have been out in the bush on wilderness beds, and there's really no reason why you can't make an extraordinarily comfortable bed. And the thing about a bed that you make for yourself, you make it to your size, and if you like it springy and or hammocky, you make it hammocky. If you like a stiffer bed, then do that too. So we looked at things like thermal mass shelters. So it's basically log lean-tos and things like that, and we start to delve into the super shelters. Morris's original super shelter was simply flexible wands bent over, and then a layer of usually first a layer of mylar, then a layer of permeable material like parachute works really well. There's other things you can use, and then a layer of poly. And the criteria to be a super shelter is it has to be a sealed bubble of air, and it has to have a vertical window that can be accept the infrared rays essentially from the sun or a fire. So it's not all about heat coming into the shelter. It's more about a certain wavelength of the same. Picture your car.
Fire radiation.
Yeah. So you picture your car in a parking lot in the summer, and how hot it gets with that sun beaming through the windows when it hits at the right angle.
It's like a human people cooker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Morris's idea was the marriage of an igloo and a greenhouse, because he took some of the concepts of both and combined them and came up with a super shelter. So to my knowledge, it's probably the most efficient shelter there is, that when you're heated from the outside.
Oh, makes sense.
Yeah.
One thing that I really like from a military perspective is the use of parachutes, the use of cordage, the use of, because a parachute is a blanket, is a tarp,
exactly,
is a shamog. It's
a filter.
cloth.
It's all kinds of things.
And like a blanket pack and a Roycraft frame, they can be built from stuff you should have in your car, in your trunk, stuff that a soldier would have if they parachuted into a location, stuff that you can backfill with the kit if you're smart about bringing nails and just simple things that shouldn't take up a lot of space. And I really like the idea that they can integrate an idea of mylar or cloth, and then when you go out in the backcountry, or if you're a pilot and you need a kit, you can just put a roll of visqueen in there, roll of mylar plastic. Yeah. You can put a roll of, you can have just some very simple things that have a varying massive amount of application.
Yeah, so. That's Morris loved that. He loved taking, well, he calls them space age materials, mylar, paracord, plastic, things like that. To him, he had to change the face of survival, really, because with those items you can just do so much. You can change your environment, and there's the versatility, the things you can do.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff you can do from a primitive perspective. Obviously, I'm very pro primitive. I like primitive. But there's some simple things that you can add, like a knife, a canteen, some mylar, some 550 cord, a few nails, and we're not even really in that big of a kit. But now I have the ability to comfortably spend the night without freezing in heat or exhaustion in a very, very cold, well below zero freezing environment by just throwing a saw in my canteen cup and making a buck saw and just bringing one little knife. Just these simple, small things that if you're smart about, turn into super usable tools. That's kind of like the magic of what I'm seeing here.
Reminds me of Morris's 2 kilogram survival kit. If you haven't looked that up, and it's kind of funny because you look at regular survival kits and then look at his survival kit, and it's completely different. His survival kit in his mind, and I totally agree.
And he has this like huge, thick, heavy, weighted library of information in his brain, and he's just filling in the blocks.
Exactly. So his kit would have like a little teeny hatchet head that you fashion a handle for, a saw blade rolled up, lots of fire making stuff, lots of paracord, the stuff you need in there to make a super shelter, the stuff you need in there to make a buck saw frame, the frame for your saw blade, what you need to make a pack frame and straps and harnesses for a set of ski shoes and that. So at the end of the day, this kit, combined with some knowledge, and just think about how much further ahead you are. And it comes in a tin can that's adequate for digging and melting snow with purifying water and houses it all. Now that's his idea of survival kit.
But if you were a pilot with this knowledge and you had that sitting in your duffel bag and your plane went down, you can walk out with snowshoes. You've got fire. You've got shelter. You could legitimately stay there for a week comfortably before anything really happens.
Yeah. You compare that to, he used to always tear this. He'd pay, like he'd buy a survival kit for $60. I watched him do it so that he could take it and open it and tear it apart and then you go through the items in there, and pseudo useful, but
Yeah.
no, can't really.
Well, like
it doesn't buy me much. So
huge boxes of Band-Aids with no tourniquets, no anything, no Israeli bandages or
anything that it would have in the first aid kit that's there to repair, you don't need to repair. You can go with that kind of thing. Yeah, and that's pretty well the theme of a lot of the commercial survival kits. So
the issue is, if it's huge, you're not going to bring it with you. You might leave it in your car, but if you've got a car, you can just have lots of insulation and spend the night in your car at some mobile shelter. I've found that that whole ideology of knowledge weighs nothing.
Yeah.
And it really comes true when you can just be smart enough to add the few things that are really helpful, so that you can use your knowledge to backfill the rest of it. But the only way that's going to happen is if you're attending a course like this, or coming and learning from someone like this.
Yeah, that's the knowledge portion. Yeah. Some of the other cool things we might do on the courses here is in the summer course we often do an out trip for a night or two. We do lots of knife skills, and we do some things on axe safety and tree felling. It's actually it can be quite a long list. A lot of interesting things.
One thing that I'm a soldier. I like rigidity and structure, but at the same time, one thing that I like that's refreshing is if you've got a skill that you want to learn while you're here and you ask.
Chances are there's somebody here that can
teach you. If you come with the idea, I want to know how to fell a tree. I want to know how to set up a squirrel pole. I want to know how to make a snowshoe. Whatever. You're gonna get something.
Yeah.
You're gonna get some questions answered. It's a really good place to finish knowledge. It's also a really good place to go and start from scratch or start from nothing.
Yeah. So to come back around to your original question, why come to Karamat, or what do we do here? So I get it's just a roll your sleeves up, get dirty, do lots of things, bit of immersion. Lots of experiential. We get lots of kudos usually for the amount of hands-on in the course. And it's just kind of we lots of repeat customers. That's always a good sign.
And you go home with some cool
some
survival tools.
Some
excellent knowledge. It's been an outstanding couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, thanks, Ty. It was great having you.
Thank you for sitting and chatting with me.
Yeah, no worries.
Hopefully this is valuable to you. If you want to go to this class, I'm going to leave a link in the bottom. If you've got questions, leave them. I'll monitor it. I'll answer your questions. If you want to know about the gear or any of that stuff, I'll stick that down below. Thank you for watching TJX Survival.
There you go. All right, that's good. Use them.
It's gonna be cold.
Fan.